Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Itepukuian right here with you in the place to be, reviews. Welcome. This is another Prodigal Son review, Season 2, Episode 5, Bad Manners. And for those of you who are enjoying the Prodigal Son reviews, thank you. I truly appreciate it. This is a show that I really enjoy. There's a few small things about it that I have to nitpick here and there, but overall, great show, fun show. It's one that I enjoy watching and reviewing. And I'll actually be scoring this episode at the end, which is something I'm going to start doing moving forward with each one. So that's it. Without further ado, let's get into this Prodigal Son review. Monkeys, roll the footage. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen, Season 2, Episode 5, Bad Manners. And you can see on screen, Mini Metep is back to host. Don't worry, you'll get to see my handsome face at the end of the video again when I give you my final thoughts and score the episode. But let's not waste any time. Let's get right into this, shall we? Because this was kind of a slowed down episode for me. Didn't really advance the main story arc as much as I would have liked it coming off of last week's probably best episode in the series run. The quick plot of this episode is Malcolm and Ainsley both race to find a killer in the debutante slangs. We start this week's episode with an Ainsley flashback as she's hiding from Martin and Jessica. They freaked out. They've been looking for her all day, but they finally find her hiding in the grandfather clock as it chimes, and Martin remarks that chime sounds off. So we get a little bit of Ainsley's cantankerous background, as it were. Then Malcolm and Gil are at a crime scene. Ainsley shows up and tries to interview Gil as they are looking at the cadaver with Idrissa, the medical examiner, and the body is very neatly arranged and posed. This killer is being called the Bridal Butcher, which the name we find out later is wrong, and Bright surmises that they have a serial killer on their hand. Ainsley and Malcolm are having a conversation about his standoffish behavior, and he flashes during this conversation to Jessica knowing that Ainsley killed Endicott based on what she said to him. Now, this is big because this moves our main story arc forward a little bit, as we'll find out later this episode. Jessica takes a road trip to Claremont Psychiatric to go and visit Martin, and she confronts him regarding the fact that Martin knew Ainsley killed Nicholas Endicott. She blames him for the kids being mentally traumatized because of what he put them through earlier in life during his arrest and the trial. Everybody found out he was the surgeon. Jessica tells Martin that he'll never be allowed to see Ainsley again. She threatens him, which is an ongoing theme, and then she forgives him because she knows she needs his help. But like I said, that all happens again later on this episode. Shortly after that, we get our first JT Tarmel appearance in weeks. The new father comes back to the show. Yes, that's right. And he expands about his meeting with the union regarding the police misconduct he was the victim of. If we remember that moment with him getting assaulted by Officer O'Malley, who is of course white, and the chokehold and the word boy were used, but let's not talk about that wokeness now, shall we? We find out the killer is putting doll eyes in the victims, which is really creepy and kind of goes along with some of the themes of the crimes of this show, which we're faced a serial killer, so what else do we expect, right? Martin calls Malcolm and tells him that Jessica knows about Ainsley regarding the Endicott murder, and Martin has always known what she's capable of. She's the surgeon's daughter, of course. He's seen flashes of himself in her since she was a child, which they alluded to in the flashback sequence. Just her, like I said, cantankerous, mischievous nature is more prevalent in Ainsley, whereas other traits have kind of manifested themselves in Malcolm more outwardly. Gil and JT pay a visit to a man who makes dolls. This is all because they found the doll eyes in one of the victims in the debutante slangs. Now, this guy is a very odd little man, and we find out he does have a criminal past, but he will not end up being our main culprit, as it were. He's guilty of being weird, that's definitely for sure. We rejoin Ainsley as she's down working on some case notes and things for her story covering the debutante slangs, and she's in Martin's basement office in the townhouse, and Jessica finds her there and freaks out because she's sitting in Martin's chair. She is so invested in this case, and Jessica is worried that she's going to start competing with Malcolm over these serial killer type cases, which, like I said, really freaks Jessica out, having recently discovered that Ainsley killed Endicott, and she's starting to see all these things come to the surface as far as her character goes now, which, like I said, is very unsettling for the mother who was married to a serial killer. Falby is being interrogated by Gil back at headquarters, and Bright walks in and he has a head of a very lifelike doll that Falby had made, and he starts mishandling it. Falby gets very worked up, and while he's doing this, Bright is obviously profiling him, and he comes to the deduction that Falby has this odd proclivity towards objectifying inanimate objects, which is some kind of weird fetish. But I mean, I guess we've all seen it on that My Strange Addiction where the guy's like, has sex with his car, or we have like people that are like dendrophiliacs that like have sex with trees. I don't know, but this guy has a doll affliction, as it were, which is just odd. Bright goes to take consult with Martin about Ainsley and her recent behavior, and we learn that she is meeting with someone who is a supposed source to give her some information regarding this case. And Malcolm and Martin are talking. Ainsley is kind of walking into a crime scene as we see these scenes running concurrently, and we kind of get this inclination it's going to be a crime scene just based on the location, how kind of an odd it is, the music, it foreshadowed what was actually going to happen. The girl she is going to see is indeed dead, and we see that she has more the doll eyes in her face, and Ainsley records a cell phone video and of course releases it as part of her story, which enrages Gil, which we'll talk about in the next scene. So Gil and Malcolm are giving Ainsley hell for basically shooting a promo on a crime scene, and she is just hell-bent on catching the killer before Malcolm does. She's turned it into this odd competition between the two siblings, and whilst Gil and Malcolm are extremely pissed off at her, not to mention Jessica, who comes down to see Gil, and then Gil admonishes Jessica for seeking counsel with Martin, and JT comes in and takes Gil away as he says they have a lead in the case. So Idrissa and Malcolm are going through evidence. She finds a phone number, which they track back to this finishing school where Ainsley went, ran by a woman named Miss Windsor. Malcolm has decided to take a trip there to interview her, but Ainsley, of course, gets there first, which puts her in harm's way as we are starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together and see that this woman or someone involved with her has a issue with some of the women here who are these debutantes who are being killed. We get a glimpse of Rachel, who is Miss Windsor's assistant, and we pick up on another really odd vibe with this woman. We join JT, Gil, Officer O'Malley, and a union rep in an office at the police headquarters where they're going over whether Tarmel is going to press charges against O'Malley or not for his harassment and assault of Tarmel during the incident at Bright's apartment. JT says no, he doesn't have that kind of hatred in him. O'Malley is called a scared man, and that's why he's a bad cop, and JT leaves it at that. So hopefully this will kill this story arc, and that will be the end of it with that, because nobody needs this wokeness in this show, because the show is actually on a great trajectory, has a great cast. I like JT's character, and I don't want to see this get mired down in the normal Berlanti social justice politics. So Malcolm arrives at Miss Windsor's school. He knows that Ainsley's there. He proceeds to question Miss Windsor, and we find out the assistant is the killer, and she now has Ainsley upstairs as she drugged her tea, and she's gonna, pull her eyes out, put doll eyes in her, because she's jealous, because it turns out that Miss Windsor is Rachel's mom. That's right. And she hid her affections for Rachel as her daughter and used them to mold the other young women into what she thought that they should be. But Rachel's killing these girls, it turns out, the debutante slayings, because they rejected the manners and social graces that her mother tried to impart on them. So yeah, Ainsley is passing out from the poison. Weirdo girl's ready to pull her eyes out and make a doll. Malcolm's on his way to help. He comes walking out of the closet as he's been watching this, and you have to go through like a little secret passage to get to her room. He starts talking to Crazy Girl. She's got a handgun. He notices she's been crossing out victims' names on a list, and we find out that Rachel, like I said, is Miss Windsor's daughter. And yeah, we get the scene where Ainsley comes to because she was just kayfabing. She's not actually drugged, but Malcolm is trying to talk her down, and he goes to go for the gun. Ainsley's walking up behind her with a knife, and Malcolm's trying to basically talk Ainsley down, and in the process the old lady's turning on all these gas lamps in the house, and Malcolm gets Ainsley, Crazy Girl Rachel out, and Miss Windsor blows the house up, and that's it. Malcolm has a moment with Ainsley. Jessica's back in Martin's cell. She confides that she needs Martin to help her save Malcolm and Ainsley, and he tells her that there is nothing he won't do to save his family. And that's where we leave this week's episode. Season 2, Episode 5, Prodigal Son, Bad Manners. Let me wrap this thing up. So my final thoughts on Season 2, Episode 5, Bad Manners. While it didn't have a whole lot of plot movement, it had subtle things that were going to work in the favor of character development, moving forward with the main story arc. And of course, we're talking about Ainsley recalling her repressed memories from the night she killed Nicholas Endicott. This also plays into Martin Whitley, or the surgeon, and his quest to help his family. Jessica's realization that her kids are more like Martin than she even knew. There's a very strong tone of him wanting to protect the sister. Of course, we also have Gil and Jessica's kind of shallow arc that I think they're going to abandon now. Gil still has a thing for Jessica. It's going to be unrequited, though, non-reciprocal, I believe. We didn't get Danny Powell this episode, which is always a loss when we don't see her on camera. And we got JT Tarmel back post having his son. We got to see the little bit of story arc with him and Officer O'Malley, that kind of squashing that, which I don't think they will. I think they'll come back to it, and O'Malley will probably either do something else to him or we'll have something else along those lines. Overall, I thought it was a decent episode. Not bad, not great. My wife, Mrs. Wilkuian, gave it a 3 out of 5. I'm going to be generous and I'll go with 3 out of 5 on this as well. It was an episode, nothing more, nothing less. Like I said, minor character development. Not as ham-fisted woke as we've had a couple times this season. So I hope you enjoyed the review. Do all the YouTube things. Watch the videos. There's 2 linked at the end of this. If you're into the Prodigal Son reviews, if you've already seen them, there's a ton of back catalog content on the channel. Live streams, which we've got going rogue coming up tonight, 8:30. My guest will be Angelus Draven, the Phantom Menace Vampire. Big Rig, Nick Utam from World Class Bullshitters. Plus, maybe one more guest. Myself, Tony Tone Deaf, will be here to entertain you. I'm Itepokuin of the Place to Be Reviews. I've been here with all of you. And remember, if I don't see you, have a great day, a pleasant tomorrow, and I'll catch you on the next one.